Well, staying on this story, we're now joined via Zoom by social justice activist working closely with whistleblowers, John Clark, and he's been closely following this case. A very good afternoon to you, John. Thanks so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, grateful to be here, notwithstanding the COVID, which has caught me.
Wow. Well, we hope that you recover very quickly from that.
Yeah, well, I should be down at a funeral of Ms. Mabaso, who was in KZN, the 22nd person to have been killed without any arrests being made for the Abasali Basamjundolo. So I want to frame whatever comment I have in that context of saying our criminal justice system is actually on trial.
All right, so you've been closely monitoring this case, the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, and the case, and I just wonder what your thoughts are about this recent development of yet another witness that's died.
Well, I'm not a legal expert, I hasten to say. I'm simply a social worker, but I am a student of history. And if you look at the long arc of the moral universe, you do notice that it does tend towards justice. And I believe that there is sufficient momentum still from all different perspectives and interests for people to find out what really happened. And it will emerge. There were enough eyewitnesses there. And the reason I'm working with whistleblowers is try and make whistleblowing more more acceptable and less a high-risk factor, because there are people that can blow the whistle about what actually happened 8 years ago nearly in that house. And whether it gets anybody convicted in court or not, the main thing is that the truth will prevail.
One of the defense attorneys has pretty much said that this case cannot afford to be dragged on, because he said that people will die, and we don't know whether this is a coincidence, but it doesn't sound great when you start to see witnesses dying before they testify.
It certainly doesn't, and after Advocate Tefa was arrested, nearly 2 weeks ago, I was very concerned. I mean, I'm quite close to him and to some of his clients we have in common, and we had to take certain precautionary measures to ensure that they were safe. They are safe, they've come through that, and we've always got to guard against paranoia taking hold of us. But it is alarming, and I certainly say, hopefully this will galvanize all parties to this trial to just get on with it and not to seek delays, to prioritize this case over all other cases. I can't believe that any of the other, either the state, prosecutor or the other defense counsel have more important matters than this one. It's been so long, and it is potentially, and I just think for this reason, it's potentially a restorying of justice. In other words, a new story to emerge about how the criminal justice system works. So I would just hope that we don't indulge in further conspiracy, and of course the conspiracy mill's been grinding big over this latest thing. But I think that it's so important for us just to try and find out what facts we do know, have them rigorously cross-examined, look at all different perspectives, detach ourselves from any particular bias that we might have, one way or the other, and I believe through that something will emerge that will finally give us some consolation.
All right, we'll talk about the criminal justice system a bit more just now, but I know that you work a lot with whistleblowers, and I just wonder if something is resonating with you here, because people might start to put two and two together and maybe come with 22 or 4, depending on the circumstances and the evidence that does come out eventually. But people who would be witnesses in high-profile criminal cases probably are watching this and feeling nervous and might not want to be witnesses.
Well, that's why I really, pitched in to be a support to them, because it's very, if not physical assassination, there's also a lot of retaliation against people who speak truth to power and speak the truth about power, which I think is actually a more important thought, because the way in which power tends to operate is to kind of try and suppress and sort of stifle and smother truth. Now, all the more reason why civil society should be mobilizing, why the media needs to act with more responsibility. I have to say, Peter, a little bit concerned by some of the print media and the way in which they're covering this trial. Okay, they need to sell newspapers and be sensationalist about it. The court of public opinion needs to be very well informed and needs to be reassured. And I think in some ways there's a call for all of us to try and up our game and just be that much more diligent, that much more rigorous in looking at what the facts say, and to not jump to conclusions too readily. I also want to say, as regards whistleblowers specifically, if we can only have a culture and a climate that's more conducive to whistleblowing, so much more will come out of the wrongdoing of things. And that's why we have these sorts of retaliation. I see them as the last kicks of a dying donkey. It's an attempt to try and cause people to be fearful. I'm so encouraged when I work with whistleblowers to see how they would never regret having taken the step, notwithstanding the personal costs and sacrifices they've had to endure. And I think that's a message to all those diabolical forces out there. I'm sorry, you're not going to prevail. You simply aren't.
Yeah. You mentioned the media. What has concerned you specifically? What kind of reportage have you seen that's worried you?
Well, I'm just a bit concerned that, with Dan Teffo's arrest and the suggested allegations about what he's done and hasn't done, and that there's kind of, I've seen so many of my other clients. Let's take, for example, the 2008, the Cato Manor story. Aris Donikas was one of the members of that Cato Manor unit. He fled the country out of fear of his life, and he had to blow the whistle on the way that was working. So the South African media engaged in a relentless retaliation media strategy against him, even though he was in exile. He's now still looking at what's happening in South Africa. He's now got the experience of what happens in Europe with the EU directive that we need to properly protect media. But it's now part and parcel of an international whistleblower kind of movement to know that there are good and bad ways of dealing with these cases in the media. And we need to be, and media need to follow the press code rigorously, give people right to reply, make sure they follow the facts. In the same way as a court would do, but obviously within a broader mandate. So that would be my concern. I think if there's one allegation that's been made, I can't say more about it now, other than the fact that one of my clients will be asking me to please assist her, if the report is correct, is there, to actually lodge a complaint with the South African Press Council.
Right.
Because, it's let me just allow that adjudication process to speak for itself, because I do believe it works.
All right, we've run out of time, but social media as well, I guess, is something to be concerned about, because people have already tried this case there, and it creates expectations that perhaps are unwarranted.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because since I got involved with this case, over the last 90 days, my YouTube channel has registered over 100,000 views, because I've got stories there, interviews with people, and I feel a bit stage fright because I'm not used to this. But the reason I'm doing it is to make sure the public is very well informed with factual stuff, because and obviously the SABC plays a vital role, far more reach than I do, and that's why I'm grateful to be here. But I do think that everybody who is on social media doesn't, they're still obligated to actually be factual and not to just simply indulge in kind of ridiculous conspiracy theories, because they don't help, and they only create anxiety and alarm, which can become almost like a self-fulfilling type of outcome of further alarm. So let's all calm down, let's get the facts, let's behave like adults.
John, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and I have no doubt that we'll be chatting a lot more in the coming weeks. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Right, that's John Clark, who's somebody who really does fight for whistleblowers, their protection, and someone who's been watching the Senzo Meyiwa case and trial quite closely, speaking to us about the latest developments.